Hi everyone, and welcome to The Cage on Sports Tonight Live. We've got a fantastic show for you this evening. We're going to focus all on women's MMA this evening and the world of women's MMA. I've got some great guests tonight. I've got first Danielle, the Curse West. I've got Lisa, Lights Out McCallum. And of course, Mr. 48 himself, Brad Wharton. The thorn between two roses, I guess.
Absolutely.
So we're going to talk a little bit about women's MMA tonight. You know, Brad, what are your thoughts with the women's scene in the UK and the women's scene globally?
Well, I'm in a very precarious position at the moment, so I'm obviously going to say nice things. No, I love women's mixed martial arts. I'm all for it.
We've got, Danielle, some footage of one of your fights coming up, but you've been in the game for a while. You've been in some absolute wars. You've got one of your proteges here. I'm sure will attest to how hard you can hit, how hard she can hit back. But I'd like to first take a look at this fight, and then we'll come back and talk to it. So here's a clip of a fight of Danielle West in Japan.
God, I didn't even remember that.
Wow. That was fantastic.
What a fight.
How long ago was that fight?
September, I think it was the 4th of September, just last year. So,
Last year.
yeah.
Huge international audience there, huge international venue.
It was. Never beat up a hot chick.
Yeah.
So it was a lot of I guess a lot of comments about that fight from her fans.
Yeah. What was the reaction to you coming over? I mean, clearly they're bringing you in to fight sort of a hometown favorite, big venue like that, big crowd, and how did the fans react to you coming in and performing that way?
Well, funny enough, I think the one thing I loved about Japan was the crowds over there were very receptive, you know, whether you're, you know, outside or not. And I think the only other country that really tends to do that, that I've, in my experience, has been Sweden, where no matter what country you're hailing from, hometown or not, everyone gets applauded. It also helped, I think, in Japan. There was, I think there were Marines or there were U.S. military reserves in the audience because one of the chaps had fought in earlier. So, because there was a huge like uproar when I'd come in, and I was like, oh my God, you know, who's here? And it was the military folk had come up afterwards and, you know, congratulated me. But even after the fight, there were a lot of Japanese audience members. A mother and her son had come over and asked me to sign a playbook. So no, the Japanese audience was fantastic, actually.
Really, really switched on, the Japanese audience too, aren't they?
Yeah,
they get it, don't they?
Absolutely. I mean, they've got just such a huge legacy. It's, I mean, it's so integral to their culture. I think. I think, you know, they have a real appreciation. You know, win or lose. I think as long as you're putting the effort in, you know, the warrior spirit, as they call it. So no, I can't wait to go back and compete there again.
Yeah. One of the coolest things for me about when you go and see live MMA in Japan is that the crowd's just deathly silent. Is that a weird experience when you're in the ring?
No, I really liked it. I hate hearing the crowd. Every so often, like I think I've had a couple of fights locally, and I have friends who will come and support. And the applause, I'm just like, oh no, please, just wait till the end. I almost prefer being booed or hearing nothing at all. So I usually just try and listen from my corner. So.
And so, like I said, you've been in the game for a while. When was your first fight?
Oh gosh, I think it was 2000. I want to say it was 2003 or 2004. It was against Kelly Salone. It was yeah, it was years ago now. And I'd never done anything like it. I think I'd had 5 weeks to prepare. I did a little bit of. I did judo for a year, and I thought, yeah, you know, the ring. She was a ring girl for this event called Ultimate Combat. I don't know if you remember the promotion, but yeah, I was there helping to take notes for the press, and yeah, she'd come out, and they were like, the ring girl needs an opponent for next month, and they're like, could you lose 10 kilos? And I was like, I might be able to. It was like she couldn't find an opponent. They said no, and I was like, oh, that's really unfortunate. You know, she's trained. You know, I was like, I'll go in there, I'll fight her, sure. I've gotten a few scraps when I was a kid. And yeah, I mean, she beat the living, oh God, it Yeah, a proper beatdown. So, yeah, and it was like, I remember I walked in, I was like, I walked into the Yogi Bear theme and I had a Kazushi Sakuraba mask on. So I thought, well, I said, you know, if I walk in and I pull it off, everyone will be like, wow, good for her, you know, and if I don't, they'll be like, maybe she wasn't taking it that seriously. And it only further infuriated her afterwards. She was like, she goes, you really upset me coming into the Yogi Bear theme song. And I was like, she's like you thought it was a joke. And I was like, oh, man. So yeah, I got a beating in accordance with my walk-in. So I can't like ever wear fancy masks to walk in with anymore. As a result.
But then from that day, you're hooked, weren't you?
Yeah, I love the training, the hard work, the people. It's a really, for me, it's always been a really nice way to socialize. So you kind of go, you're learning a very specific thing. There's not a lot of talking. I probably sound like slightly socially backward, but you know, it's
just like hitting someone.
Maybe, I don't know. No, it's you know, it keeps me off the streets, man. So, because I'd be into all sorts of trouble if I wasn't doing the sport, obviously.
Yeah. So you've got a bit of a, shall we say, colorful background.
Yeah.
I like to when I'm talking about MMA and your name comes up, and because you have this ritual with your opponents, you're kind of Tyler Durden personified, aren't you?
Yeah, it was. I remember one time I was like, no, I'm definitely not. You know, I don't have multiple personalities. But yeah, I've done the soap making. I started soap making before I started fighting, and then somebody's like, exactly. So, but yeah, no, I make soap as a hobby. I used to sell it at farmers markets and stuff. But I always think it's nice to just kind of thank my opponents for putting in all the hard work, making weight, showing up for the fight, and then having the fight, because it's a lot to ask anybody to take 6 weeks of their life and sacrifice it, you know, for an event.
Yeah.
You know, or for a 15-minute match.
Well, it's not like they're being forced to put in there.
No, no. Then it would be a lot different, I guess. It'd be like, you know.
They're in there to hurt
like
you.
POW camps. No, they're not in there to hurt you, though. They're just there to compete against you. You know, it's two people that enjoy sport, and you know, they have enough respect for each other, and I think appreciation of their skills, and they, you know, get in there and compete. So it'd be, you know, it's no different than having a chess match or a tennis game. I don't think, personally. So.
Well, so we've got one of your training partners.
Yeah, I know.
Somebody who's has looked up to you and trained with you and has learned quite a lot from you.
Oh.
Lisa Lights Out McCallum, up and comer, fantastic fighter. I've seen you fight a couple times. I've really enjoyed watching you fight. What's it like to come up with people like Danielle to train with and to just kind of get your game going?
It's unbelievable because she asked to train with me, so I took everything on board really. She was there at my first fight, and she helped me prepare for the Stacey Hayes fight. It's just amazing to watch, you know, like someone who's been in the sport for so long, and then I'm sitting next to her now. It's just a good experience, you know. I'm taking everything as it comes. I just love every minute of it, you know, and I respect her as a person and as a fighter, you know. Yeah, someone I have to look up to.
Yeah, great. And I think we've got a clip of you training a bit. So we'll roll the clip and you can talk us through a little bit what's going on and what you're doing.
Yeah, we're just practicing on my hands for my up-and-coming fight. Yeah, just working hard with my head coach, Eddie Cohn. Just basic drills. Just a warm-up.
So Eddie's an encyclopedia, isn't he? I mean, you get your hands going and he...
Yeah. I've got quite a few stand-up coaches. You know, Eddie's a ground man. You know, he's a black belt in jiu-jitsu. I've got Crew Gary, who's my Muay Thai coach, and Dave Noble, who's, you know, fantastic. But at the same time, you know, Eddie Cohn knows he's stand-up as well. You know, I enjoy training with every one of my trainers, Danielle, everyone. It's just, I just feel privileged, you know, into the sport for being so young and getting to train with certain people. And my coaches, you know, I actually look up to them as a coach, you know, as a dad, as an uncle figure. Sure.
And speaking of being so young, how old are you?
I'm 17.
You're 17. 17 years old and you're already a professional fighter.
Yeah.
1-0 is your professional record now,
yep.
Isn't it? Yeah. And what's your next fight?
I got a World K1 title fight on UCF on March the 3rd. So yeah.
March the 3rd. So Danielle, you're getting her ready for that?
Actually, I've got a fight camp myself at the minute, so I'm preparing for a match I have up in Holland on the 12th of Feb against Urena Bars.
Fantastic. And where's that one going to be?
Holland, it's in, I want to say it's Rome. It's just outside of Amsterdam. So it
Another
should
big
be
international fight.
Yeah. It's an all-women's card. There's something like 40 women's.
Really?
Wow.
There's like 40 fights on this card. I have a feeling it's going to start early in the day, and we're headlining it, which I was.
They do that in Holland. They tend to start their cards at like 10, 11
do
in the
they?
morning.
Because that's what they did when I was at Pancrase as well. They'd been running since 11 that morning, because we couldn't do the run through in the cage, the ring. So I guess it must be the same thing. Because I thought 40 fights, and I thought, oh my God, when am I going to? So yeah, I'll probably be another one. And again, it's in a ring. It's probably just a very similar format to Japan, really.
Yeah.
But yeah. So
an all women's card though. I wish somebody in the UK. I wish somebody in the UK would put on an all women's card. Yeah.
It's bizarre because they very often women's fights are often fight of the night at many events. I've seen every so often you get I think a fight that might not be as great, and I mean that will happen. Like if I had a pound for every heavyweight fight I saw that was rubbish, I'd be wealthy.
Yeah.
I mean, I'd be wealthy enough to start my own promotion and like have women's fights in the card. Because it's true. I always hate when people are like, oh, women's fights are not very good, but they are. I mean, more often than not, they're fight of the night.
The pace is just. I mean, I always say I'd rather fight two guys than any one girl. And some of your fights that I've seen, Lisa, are just. I mean, the pace is just relentless, and girls get in. And so, how do you train knowing that whoever's going to be standing across the cage is going to come at you at that same pace?
It's just exactly what you just said, really. You got to think of the worst and you got to think of the best. I wouldn't go into a fight if my stand-up wasn't as good as my ground or my ground wasn't as good as my stand-up, because you've got to take a fight wherever it comes, really. You're going to get someone who's better on the ground. You're going to get someone who's better standing, It's mixed martial arts at the end of the day. It's not a K1, it's not a grappling competition, it's mixed martial arts.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely.
Make no mistake as well, women's MMA is going to get there. What you've got going on in Brazil at the moment, you've got Jungle Fight, which is the biggest promotion in Brazil, run by Valide Ismail. They're actually running an all-women's show later on this year called Pink Fight. And to have that in the mecca of mixed martial arts, huge step forward. So I think it's only going to be a matter of time before we see that in the UK, Europe, and America as well.
Think we'll ever see women's UFC?
Yeah, at some point. Maybe not this year, maybe not next year,
if
maybe in
Dana
5 or 10
White's
years.
not so stubborn,
No,
then yeah.
I mean, they've already got the Rousey-Tate fights coming up in March, and that's gotten huge fanfare. And as a matter of fact, Dana White was tweeting about the ticket sales himself.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I think it's whatever.
It's got to be good, doesn't it?
Well, it's whatever's going to make money, put bums on seats. It's a business at the end of the day, and I think he has to be pragmatic in his approach.
Yeah.
So, I bet, it probably helps that I think you have two very strong characters with Rousey and Tate. It's a slight bit of a grudge match, I think, only because of all the noise that's been on Twitter and, with all the different interviews and such. So, and I mean, skill-wise, they're both, decent skill sets, so, it should be a very good fight. So I still wish Kaufman had gotten in before Rousey, but that's...
Absolutely.
So I know, I'm just like, I had to put my 2 cents in there, so...
I mean, I see Dana's point with where he is at the moment, saying that, he doesn't think that the divisions are deep enough.
Exactly.
And for me, that's really important, because you wouldn't want women's mixed martial arts to be put on such a big platform and then not to stack up to the guys, because there are women out there who are competing on the same level. There's just not enough of them yet because there's not the opportunities.
Yep.
And the more fights that happen, the more, like you say, all women's mixed martial arts cards that happen, the more opportunities there'll be for girls to get involved in the sport, the talent pool will grow, and then the UFC will come call.
Well, absolutely, but I think, it's also, the public and how the media handles it as well. I think, you do tend to get a lot of negative coverage with the women's divisions, which I think is a bit unfortunate. But it's also, I mean, when you look, they never had the lighter weights on UFC for ages, and they're like, oh, the pool's not big enough. It is it definitely is a case of if you build it, they will come.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
that's the other thing is there isn't a lot of support or encouragement for women to be in the sport. I mean, I have a full-time job. I couldn't do this. I don't know many women, except at the very top echelon, you have women that are doing it full-time. But really, when you look at the cards, and so, I mean, yes, exactly. But, what I'm saying is, like, you look at the fight card, I think Milos Koenen was on a fight card with Dan Henderson. Henderson's, payout and purse was, I mean, massive compared to hers. I mean, seriously, it was, at least 10 times. I think it was probably more than that. And it's just, those sorts of, inequities and discrepancies, I think, that bother it. You do get a lot of negative coverage. Or, again, it really bothers me about, the whole aesthetic behind the sport.
Sure.
I mean, I have to do my fight picks for the upcoming UFC, and it's one of the, I'm very tempted, Nelson's on the, there's so many guys on there that I'm like, oh my God, I wouldn't touch them with a 10-foot barge pole. He looks like he smells. But it's not about that when you're doing fight picks. At the end of the day, it's two people that have trained very hard. You have to look at, their records, you have to look at their strengths, you have to look at their weaknesses. Their appearance, their personal hygiene doesn't play into it. So not that I'm saying anything about any woman's personal hygiene. So, but it's just there are several male fighters that I look at and I'm like, oh, you know, I definitely wouldn't want to be stuck under his guard. You know, it's like
we'll talk about the upcoming UFC because there's a lot of really good fights coming up. So when we come back in part 2, we're going to be joined by Ian M16 Butlin on our Skype wall. So join us for part 2 of The Cage on Sports Tonight Live. Welcome back to The Cage on Sports Tonight Live. Before the break, we just started talking about the UFC. We had a great event last weekend on Fox. We were fortunate enough. Brad, I want to talk to you a little bit about your thoughts. There were some big knockouts, some good submissions. What did you think of the UFC show the past weekend? It
was a great event, and as we were saying before we came on, they keep hitting them out of the park. It's been maybe 6 or 7 events in a row, and they've just been absolutely fantastic. Great knockouts, great submission. Obviously, we saw Nick Denis, Thai clinch, elbow knockouts, something you see very rarely.
That was cool,
in
wasn't it?
Arts. Very cool. Pat Barry probably saved his UFC career with a massive knockout of Christian Moorcraft. And the main event, Jim Miller now back in the UFC lightweight title hunt with that victory over Melvin Gillard.
Yeah, fantastic. Really good. I'm really pleased with what UFC's doing with Fox, sort of bringing some of the guys back, bringing them up. And we're going to start to see, I think, a lot of the guys in the UFC that may have been on their way out or out coming back in and making
more shows, more opportunities.
Absolutely.
So it's fantastic.
Absolutely. So we're joined now on our Skype wall by Ian M16 Butlin. Ian, how's it going?
Very well, thank you.
It's good to see you from a million miles away.
Always good to see you, Bret.
Yeah. So we're talking a bit about the UFC card this past weekend. We've got another really good card coming up this weekend. Mike Bisping's coming up. What are your thoughts on what's coming up in the UFC?
To be honest, I'm just really, it's horrible to say happy someone's been injured, but I think Mike's got a great opportunity now, and I'm really looking forward to it. So I think Sonnen seems to be writing him off a little bit. He's a very overconfident, but Mike's he's a tough guy, very good striker, and I think he's got a great chance here of winning. And looking at what he's going to get if he does win, which they say is going to be a football stadium. In Brazil with a huge crowd, I think this is just a great opportunity for him, and I think he's going to seize it.
Yeah, what a great way for somebody to bring a title to the UK by doing it in Brazil, in a stadium, and bringing the belt home, eh?
It's going to be amazing. It's every man's dream, sure.
Yeah, absolutely. And there's some other pretty good fights on the card. Anything else you're looking forward to this weekend on the card?
I always like watching Rashad Evans fight, and I think he's very explosive wrestling and good striking. But he's coming up against a guy who's just got such a solid wrestling background. I'm interested to see how he takes that fight. So I think that's going to be a good one as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I think there's a lot of Matt Wyman's coming up as well. Really enjoy watching him fight. I think there's going to be a lot of really exciting fights, as you said, Brad. They just keep hitting him out of the park. So yeah, good things coming in the UFC. And then obviously I absolutely can't wait till the next event. Nick Diaz is that's gonna be brilliant. So really looking forward to what's on the cards of the UFC. So what about you at the moment? I know you're back in the gym. You're training. I saw you a couple weekends ago. You're over in Ireland doing a seminar. Tell us a little bit about what's coming up with you.
Yeah, I'm back, just training, trying to get the weight off and everything ready. I'm looking at a comeback June sort of time. So at the moment, the Full Contact Performance Centre, where I will be training with it's my old student Martin Stapleton. He's setting up his own gym. I've just been down there today. They've got the ring and the cage in there. It's a huge facility. They've got like the Marines fitness. Obviously, it was the PTI for the Royal Marines. So they've got a huge Marines fitness area, sprint tracks. Sprints with parachutes, climb ropes, as well as the weights area, huge mat, ring cage. So I'm going to be down there full time. I've given up my coaching. All my M16 MMA guys have moved over to train with my brother, and I'm just going to be focused 100% on fighting again this year. Fantastic!
I can't wait for that. I've got to ask you the stairs that you took Danny Dyer on. Are you running those stairs to get ready?
Yeah, I have 9.
Are you?
Yeah, I'm back. I'm back doing those once a week.
Are you really? I'll have to come up and do those with you one day.
You'll love it, Bret.
Yeah.
Ian, you ran a seminar this past weekend with Mark Goddard doing the officiating, the refereeing and judging and everything. I'm going to be on the next one. Really looking forward to it. How important is it, do you think, for people who are in the UK MMA industry to just experience this, whether they're a fighter or a judge or whatever?
For me, every time, I mean, I've been to the seminar twice now, but I talk to Mark on a regular basis about this. And I know myself up here with MMA consultants, Neil Hall is MMA officials who I use for a lot of my officiating work. You know, we're all trying to push this course. I've got another one at the Full Contact Performance Centre in May, and you know, there's so many times I see coaches and fighters come out of a cage arguing with the officials that they don't agree with the decision, and so you know you can kind of push them on. Well, do you understand the scoring criteria? And you've got fighters that are going into a fight, coaches who are coaching fighters to fight, who don't understand the scoring criteria. It's like, well, you know, how are you going to win a football match if you don't know that you've got to kick it between those 3 white pegs? You know, to me, it's ridiculous. And I think it's so important. We're trying to raise the standards of not just officials in referees and judges, but also promoters. Let the promoters see, you know, this is a fairly new sport. You know, we're in our teenage years. And we need this to progress, and we need it to mature into a proper sport. Until we get everybody agreed and singing from the same hymn sheet, we're not going to get that.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. I think you guys, you and Aaron Chatfield and Neil, you guys are doing a fantastic job, really sort of raising the game for UK MMA. And I think maybe we'll have all 3 of you come down one day in the studio, and we can have a proper chat about where UK MMA is going and what you guys are doing to kind of help it.
I'd really like to do that, and I'll tell you for why. Because I think, you know, everybody was trying to do it over the whole of Great Britain to start with, and it's very difficult, you know, to get everyone to agree. Now, what we've just settling is we work on a majority of the shows across the north, and we're just trying to up those standards. You know, we'll keep it so that everyone's got the same judging, the same referees, everybody's. I mean, as Mark says on his course, it doesn't give you a qualification, but what it's giving you is that knowledge and things, so then you can practice and train. So at least if we can up the standards up here, and hopefully everyone else will follow suit. I know that Brian Adams is doing the course down south as well, so he's trying to do the same stuff. And if everybody's doing it, you know, I think over the next 12 months we're going to see a real improvement in the standards nationwide of the sport.
Yeah, fantastic. Well, thank you so much for your time today, Ian. Thanks for coming on our Skype call. As I said, I'll give you a call and we'll have you come down and we'll do it properly in the studio next time.
I'd love to. Thanks for having me, guys.
Thanks, Ian. Speak to you soon.
Cheers, fella. Bye.
And now we've got a really, really nice clip. We've got one of Michael Bisping's archive fights, given that he's fighting this week. Let's take a look at Michael Bisping versus Ross, the Gladiator Poynton.
We don't know too much about Ross's.
Ross, tight guard there. I expect to see him start swinging. Nice little kick. His shoulders are very high up. It looks a bit stiff, that.
Yeah, well, he's obviously going to be nervous fighting someone with Mike's reputation.
He does throw the strikes. I think Mike's had better quality strikes so far. But that's a big
nice leg kicks.
A great overhand right, it landed. It's not flustered Mike at all. A very, very controlled fighter. So you can see now working for a high guard from Mike Bisping.
Armbar attempt.
Yeah, he didn't have a lot of control, but at least he's going for it.
Ross defended it.
I think Ross should back off and let him stand up. Okay. Well, Ross needs to put some pressure on, I think.
Oh, nice
Great high kick. Even though it was defended, I think you still feel a kick with that much power behind it.
Ross is looking very dry.
He is. Oh, another high kick, and that landed. I don't think it did a lot of damage. Mike's literally bullying Ross around at the moment.
These shots taking their toll on.
Yeah. He's throwing shots in, he's bullying him to the ground.
I'll have to question if it's the power of Mike's shots or whether Ross has warmed up properly.
Okay, so we're on the ground now. Let's see how Mike can work from guard. He's primarily known as a striker, but
his fights rarely go to the ground.
Pushing Ross off.
Ross is doing quite well now.
He's throwing some great powerful kicks in there. I don't know how much damage that kind of kick does to somebody who's on the back. Armbar attempt. It looks sunk to me. And Ross is tapping out.
Yep, quick tap there. Nice win for Mike Bisping.
Great win for Mike Bisping. 10 fights, 10 wins, 10 stoppages. Yeah. You can't get better than that.
Well, Mike was a heavy favourite going into this round, going into this fight.
Definitely.
So we were talking about Bisping last week, and I think that you had mentioned his ground game and his submissions, and you wouldn't be surprised to see him submit Sonnen in his match.
I might be a little bit surprised, but I don't think it's a million miles away. People got to remember about Mike is he's very good at getting guard back when he is taken down. His submission defence is very good, never been submitted as a professional. And as we said about Charles Sonnen, submission defence, that's his Achilles heel. So, you know, we've seen the clip of Mike there on his back going for the armbar. You know he's going to be trying those techniques. I think otherwise his two main weapons are going to be his footwork and his jab in this fight. He needs to keep Sonnen away from him. But if he does get taken down, he's got that ground game to fall back on.
Yeah, I think you're right. So Lisa, quickly, Bisping or Sonnen?
Bisping.
Danielle, Bisping or Sonnen?
I'm totally going to be unpopular here and say my money would be on Sonnen. If I had to bet money, it'd probably go on Sonnen.
Okay.
So hopefully I'm wrong.
Yeah.
So.
Well, we'll see. A couple
Yeah.
days, and it's all gonna happen.
And if you want to bet the house as well, Chris Weidman versus Damian Maia, great underdog pick.
Yeah.
Guy's got a lot of skills.
Another fantastic fight.
That should be
Golden Gloves champ, NCAA wrestler.
Yeah.
Bet the house.
So Danielle, quickly, when's your next fight?
12th of February
12th
in
of
Amsterdam.
In Amsterdam.
Yeah.
Right. And Lisa, your next
March
fight?
3rd, Colchester.
March 3rd in Colchester.
Yeah.
Really, really looking forward to seeing both you guys fight. Obviously, I'll have to watch you on the
The
computer.
internet.
Yeah. I'll probably be cage side. So one last thing, I'd like to thank you guys for coming on. So I've got my Hollywood It's Go Time t-shirts. One for each of you.
Thank you.
So now you are officially members of the
Thank you.
Hollywood Army.
Oh, tough.
Christmas come early.
Christmas come early.
Or late.
So for Danielle, the Curse West, for Lisa, Lights Out McCallum, and for Mr. 48, Brad Wharton, I'm Hollywood. Join us next time on The Cage on Sports Night Live.